Eevee lives alone with her paralyzed mother. She runs a horror podcast with a friend to make ends meet. There, they discuss true horror stories that have happened to various people. One day, 10 audio files arrive from an unknown email, so they decide to base their upcoming episode on this case. But as they open those audio files one by one, the real mystery begins. Because these are no ordinary recordings. These 10 audio clips are cursed and serve as a supernatural gateway to summon the devil. In today's story, I'm forbidden from scaring you, but there's no limit on the power. Today's movie is The Undertone. At the very beginning of the story, we see a girl named Evangeline Bobick, who lives alone with her elderly and dying mother. Evangeline, whom we will call Eevee for short in this story, she was sitting beside her bedridden mother, softly singing Ba Ba Black Sheep. This was Eevee's favorite nursery rhyme as a child, the one her mother used to sing to her. Her mother has been ill for a long time. She is in a sort of coma. Eevee's mother is a very religious person. She raised Eevee to be a devout Catholic as well. Eevee runs a podcast show called The Undertone. Her co-host is Justin, and they pre-record these podcasts together. A new episode of their podcast drops every Friday. They both work on this from completely different locations. Their recordings usually start at exactly 3 a.m., according to Eevee's time zone, which is known as the witching hour. Before starting the recording, Eevee and Justin chat about their personal lives. From this, we can tell that caring for her mother day after day has left Eevee mentally drained and exhausted. During this difficult time, her boyfriend Darren wasn't helping her at all. Although Eevee runs a horror podcast, she doesn't believe in the supernatural at all. On the other hand, Justin is the exact opposite. For example, in the last episode, they discussed a mysterious blog called I Feel Wonderful. Rumor has it that about 92 people cut off their own ears after visiting the blog. They reportedly mailed those ears to the blog's headquarters before meeting a horrific end. Eevee, shrugging the story off as a joke, starts browsing the blog herself, where a woman was laughing in a bizarre way. Anyway, for their new podcast recording, Justin has brought a fascinating topic. Someone had sent Justin an email containing 10 audio files. Not just the files, the messages in that email were extremely strange. These audios were originally sent by a couple. The girlfriend's name is Jessa and the boyfriend's name is Mike. Mike claimed that Jessa talks in her sleep, but she refused to believe it. So, to show Jessa the proof, Mike started recording audio at night, so he could prove to Jessa that she really does talk in her sleep. Those recordings were the 10 audio files Justin received. In the first recording, Jessa is heard reciting a poem in her sleep, and the second recording was of a nursery rhyme, but it sounded as if children were singing the rhyme completely backward. Not only that, Jessa had apparently sleepwalked into another room. While listening to this recording, Eevee briefly feels like she hears a sound from her own room, but she doesn't pay much attention to it. Justin mentions he listened to the backward rhyme in reverse and noticed something disturbing. In it, the children were singing "The killer is out. Might kill all. Might kill all." According to Justin, if you play "London Bridge is Falling Down" in reverse, it sounds exactly like that. Naturally, Eevee doesn't believe in these kinds of conspiracy theories, but Justin presents some data researched online, which claims that during the medieval period, England's Queen Eleanor funded the construction of the famous London Bridge, and right after this, her 9 children died at a very young age. After losing so many children, a strange, superstitious fear took hold of the Queen. She began to think that if she didn't sacrifice children, the London Bridge would one day collapse. Driven by this horrific superstition, she ordered the bodies of orphan children to be buried at the very base of the bridge. Now, I want to mention something here. I've also heard that such sacrifice rituals are supposedly done before building a bridge. Now, if you've heard anything like this, feel free to let us know in the comments. So, these stories seem like a joke to Eevee. She jokingly says there must be a conspiracy theory about her favorite rhyme, "Ba Ba Black Sheep too." Then Justin explains that this story is about a shepherd whose sheep were all black. At that time, black wool had no value because it couldn't be dyed any other color. As a result, the farmer couldn't earn a living, and he and his family couldn't survive. Later, when the villagers went to his house, they saw the sheep eating the farmer and his family. Even after hearing this, Eevee takes the matter very lightly. Then, the third recording is played. The sound of a water tap left running in Mike and Jess's house is heard, and the sink was overflowing. At this point, Eevee suddenly tells Justin to stop, saying they can finish the recording some other time. But the truth is, Eevee stopped the recording because she heard a sound coming from her own bathroom. When Eevee gets up and goes to her mother's room, she sees the table lamp is on. Yet Eevee clearly remembers turning the lamp off before starting the recording. So Eevee ignores it and turns the lamp off again. She's been feeling unwell since this morning. Suddenly, she started vomiting. So she called the doctor and made an appointment for a pregnancy test. In the afternoon, a nurse came by to do a routine check on Eevee's mother. From the conversation between the nurse and Eevee, we learned that her mother hasn't regained consciousness in several days. She has almost entirely stopped eating. The nurse says she likely doesn't have much longer to live. As soon as the nurse left, Darren called. He's asking her to join a party tonight at 8:30 p.m. because she hasn't left the house in so long, so it might help her feel a bit better. Eevee agreed to go, but when the time came, she didn't want to leave her mother alone. But in the end, she had to go. The next morning, when Eevee returned home, she found her mother had fallen out of bed. Eevee immediately picked her mother up and put her back in bed. But this incident triggered a deep sense of guilt in her, because she had gone out and left her dying mother all alone. Eevee notices something else. A statue of the Virgin Mary is sitting on her mother's bedside table, along with a crayon drawing inside the drawer. But as far as she remembers, that statue isn't supposed to be there. Regardless, she picked up the Virgin Mary statue and the crayons and put them in the drawer. Tonight, at exactly 3 a.m., Eevee listens to the Ba Ba Black Sheep rhyme in reverse, the version Justin had sent her. Listening closely, it sounds as if it's saying, "Look and lick all the blood." Just as Eevee was about to research it, the doctor called. Eevee's report is positive. She is 6 weeks pregnant. Hearing this news, Eevee is completely shaken, because there's no way she can keep the baby in this situation. The next morning, while doing chores, Eevee hears a sound from her mother's room. Upon checking, she sees the bathroom tap is open. Not only that, the Virgin Mary statue has returned to the table. She is truly baffled by this, because if Eevee's mother is in a coma, then who turned the tap on? And how did this statue get back out on its own? Eevee, now frightened, locks the statue inside a cabinet. Tonight was Eevee's podcast recording. Before the recording, she drinks whiskey despite being pregnant. She also listens to an old voice note from her mother, where her mother was asking to see her. Then, Eevee starts searching online for the hidden meanings behind old nursery rhymes. You can check this for yourself too, and let us know what you find in the comments. It was now nearly 3 a.m. Justin joined the podcast, but today Eevee wants to skip the small talk and dive straight into the recording. They had listened to 3 parts of the audio in the previous session. Eevee, explaining the sudden noise in the audio clip to the audience, says that the sound of the tap or something heavy moving must have been due to faulty plumbing. So there was nothing to be surprised about. Then they listened to the 4th audio where Jessa and Mike were playing with a doll. The doll had a pull string that made it say strange things, like, "I know something you don't know, and is everyone asleep?" etc. In this recording too, a sound of something heavy being struck or moved keeps repeating, which Jessa and Mike could also clearly hear. And the most terrifying part is, right before that sound, there was a strange whisper, which Eevee and Justin cannot decipher no matter how hard they try. In the next recording, Jessa is heard saying a strange word in her sleep. That word was Ozabanamok. The sound was so intense that a frightened Mike woke Jessa up. After hearing this recording, Eevee tells Justin she will finish the rest another day, because Eevee could feel strange sounds coming from within her own room. The lights in the scene were flickering. Eevee, going to check on her mother in fear, sees her mother lying in bed. However, tonight as well, the lamp beside her mother's bed has turned on. Suddenly, we notice a shadow figure behind Eevee. The next day, while Eevee was tending to her mother, Her eyes kept drifting to the Virgin Mary picture on the wall. It looked as if someone had tilted it. Moments later, Eevee listens to last night's audio again. After playing the word Ozabanamak in reverse, she realizes the real meaning is come in Abizu. Then, as Eevee repeatedly chants come in Abizu inside the room, it feels like an invisible presence enters. Immediately, all the lights start flickering. The next second, it feels like her mother is standing right in front of her. And right then, Eevee wakes up from a terrifying nightmare. She looked at the clock. It's almost 3 a.m. The podcast recording has to start right now. Justin joined the line right on time. Today, they are going to analyze the audio files even more closely. While the podcast is ongoing, Eevee is distractedly drawing with crayons. Despite her efforts to stay focused, Ozabanamak was clearly heard in Jess's audio, but Eevee pretends not to hear it. Justin says he heard Ozabanamak in reverse. It means come in Abizu, which Eevee already knew herself. However, Justin added some more information here. He says Abizu is a demon from Middle Eastern and European folklore mentioned in first-century Christian texts. There, Abizu is primarily known as a taker of children. Abizu was cursed with infertility, meaning she could never give birth to a child. For this reason, she was jealous of any woman capable of having children. Driven by this spite, she would prey on new mothers and kill their babies. Hearing these chilling stories from Justin, Eevee gets scared because she is also pregnant. Nevertheless, pushing those thoughts aside, they continue the podcast. In the next audio, we see that Jessa remembered nothing about saying Ozamak in her sleep. But even more shocking is that in the recording, Jessa and Mike hear a baby crying in their house. But there was no baby in their house at all. Though Jessa was pregnant, and they had already prepared a nursery for their upcoming baby. As time passes, listening to these audios is having a massive impact on Eevee's mind, because even if she doesn't tell anyone, she is experiencing supernatural sounds in her own room. Still, she comforts herself and tells Justin that a neighbor's baby might have been picked up by the recording. But Justin is quite scared now. He tries to reply to the email from which the recordings were sent. But surprisingly, his reply won't send, because that email address now shows as invalid. And they only just noticed that the email address was the exact reverse of come in Abizu. Then they play recording number 8, where Mike and Jessa were screaming in terror. Jessa was screaming that she had seen a female figure. But the question is, who? At this stage, although Eevee is terrified, she puts on a brave face for the podcast, saying these are just made-up stories. At this point, Justin pauses the podcast to mention a psychologist's study. He had observed 2 different patients, both of whom constantly repeated come in Abizu backward. One of these women used to text this phrase to random numbers. Later, she took her own life in the kitchen sink along with her 9-month-old. Let me tell you, the reference for this story comes from the famous 2001 Andrea Yates case in America, where this woman drowned her 5 children and told police a demon made her do it. Okay, so back to the story. The psychologist's second patient was 5 months pregnant and a ceramic artist by profession. She was hospitalized because she was making clay dolls of babies and giving them to young women in her neighborhood. And one day, she finally ended her life. At this point, Justin suggests that they shouldn't listen to the last 2 recordings. But Eevee insisted because she believed this podcast was going to go viral. They had to listen to the audios in full. However, they could end this episode here if they wanted, and listen to the remaining 2 audios for the next episode, making it a 2-part podcast. So, after recording the outro for part 1, Eevee goes to check on her mother. She admits she is pregnant and says if it's a girl, she'll name her Mary, because Eevee's mother always made her recite the Hail Mary prayer. Right at that moment, the closet light turned on by itself. Eevee, in a strange trance, silently closed the closet and left the room. Frustrated by these events, Eevee starts taking anxiety medication. But even after taking the strong medicine, Eevee cannot sleep. Truth be told, Eevee hasn't been able to sleep for several nights. So, she tried to sleep by listening to relaxing audio in her headphones. But in a nightmare, she sees herself falling down the stairs covered in blood. Eevee and her mother both scream out in agony. Startled awake from the nightmare, Eevee hears her mother praying. Eevee rushes to her mother's room and turns on the light, but her mother is in the same state as before. Then, Eevee called to make an appointment at a women's clinic, because she doesn't want to keep the baby. As soon as Eevee turns off the light and leaves, we see her mother take her last breath. Right after that, a strange vocal sound is heard. The time comes for their podcast recording, where Justin and Eevee were sitting down to hear the final 2 audio files. While working, Eevee is intensely focused on drawing something with crayons. During the recording, Justin was inviting listeners to call in and share their thoughts on the podcast. Then, the 9th recording is played. Jessa was saying she doesn't feel right at all, because she supposedly saw another shadow figure lying beside her at night other than Mike. One that looked exactly like her. While saying this, she suddenly begins to laugh in a diabolical way. And right after this, the audio file gets corrupted for some reason. Soon after, Justin notices it is 20 minutes to 3 o'clock on his watch. And Eevee's clock shows the exact same time, which is impossible, because they live in 2 completely different time zones, meaning they are in 2 different countries. Just then, the first caller rings in, calling from the same area where Eevee lives. The caller says Jessa and Mike were his neighbors and that they died a tragic death. Police found their bodies under the stairs of the house. At the time of death, plastic was wrapped around their heads, and there were drawings of dead babies on the walls of their house. Not only that, Jessa was 5 months pregnant when she died. Suddenly, the call gets disconnected. Hearing this, terror rises in Eevee, but she hides it and keeps drawing with increased intensity. Finally, they play the 10th audio. In this audio, Mike was repeatedly telling Jessa he needed to take her to the hospital. But Jessa wasn't listening to a word he said. Suddenly, that sound starts again, and it begins to feel to Eevee that the sound isn't from the recording, but from her own house. As the clock hits 3 o'clock, the children's reverse rhyme floats in, and with it, the lights in Eevee's entire house start flickering. The situation becomes so terrifying that the bulbs explode, accompanied by the bone-chilling cries of children. Just then, another caller dials into the podcast. He says he wants to talk to Mary and keeps repeating it. Moments later, that voice begins to change. Then, Eevee remembers she planned to name her daughter Mary. In the midst of this, someone else calls and says with a cold laugh, "She's waiting for you. You should never have summoned Abizu during the witching hour." Right then, Eevee notices something strange in her crayon drawings. All the pictures she drew have come together to form the shape of a terrifying demon. Shortly after, they get another call from a woman named Abby. She calls Eevee and Justin crying for help. Abby says she can't handle her baby anymore. From Abby's voice, it clearly sounded like she was considering ending her baby's life. So, Justin and Eevee desperately try to talk her down. But unfortunately, the sound of water is heard from the other side. At that moment, Eevee suddenly blurts out that she let her mother die. Saying this, Eevee breaks down in tears. Her mother had cared for her all her life, but when her mother needed her most, Eevee didn't even say a simple prayer by her bed. She constantly gave her mother false excuses, claiming she was busy when she actually had nothing to do. Abby, after a brief silence on the line, says in a demonic voice, "It's too late now." Suddenly, a massive crashing sound is heard and the baby's crying stops forever. Eevee notices her entire room has turned blood red, and the Cursed I Feel Wonderful blog is playing on the living room TV. Eevee rushes over and pulls the plug, but the TV refuses to turn off. A bizarre supernatural sound echoes throughout the room. The whispers are becoming unbearable. Moments later, all the lights in the room flicker and explode. In a panic, Eevee screams for Justin's help, but her voice is drowned out by the chanting of the Ozoberic mantra. Crayon drawings of the demon and dead babies cover every wall. Everything in the room seems to sink into a void of darkness and inhuman screams. She somehow makes it to her mother's room, where everything is quiet. Then her blood turns cold, because her mother isn't in the bed. Only the Virgin Mary statue is sitting there. and her mother's dead body is standing right in front of the bathroom. Then, her mother silently walks backward out of the bathroom in a distorted way. As Eevee screams mother in terror, a voice is heard in the darkness. Opnik, Opnik. So that was the story of the movie The Undertone. I know you all have a lot of questions, so let me explain them simply. This movie can be interpreted in two ways. The first theory is the supernatural angle. According to this, Abizu truly entered Eevee's house through the cursed audio files. She likely targeted Mike and Jessa first before moving on to Eevee via the podcast. But then there's the second theory, the psychological angle. According to this, no supernatural events actually occurred. Everything we saw was a horrific hallucination of Eevee's mind, which only seemed supernatural from the outside. The stress of caring for a dying mother, an unwanted pregnancy, and the guilt from her strict Catholic upbringing, combined with chronic insomnia, anxiety meds, and heavy drinking during pregnancy. All these mental and physical pressures combined to break Eevee's psyche, causing her brain to lose the ability to distinguish between reality and imagination. Everything from the thought of abortion to the image of falling down the stairs and the plastic over the face. These represent the destruction of her maternal instincts and her failure as a daughter. So, tell me in the comments which theory you think is correct. Also, if you have another opinion, let us know. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay tuned.